Honestly, this grief gets stronger when we see our peers, our friends, and people around us manifest the things that we hope for our future self. We are often taught that grief needs a time, a body, and a date. We are often taught that grief is the emotional pain we feel after a loss. Grief is our heart's response to something or someone that mattered to us, that is now gone or changed. But the kind of grief I battle with these days is something different. It's the grief of what I never became. Let's talk about the grief that never gets named. Not the grief of losing someone we love, but the grief of losing my future self. Like the version of me that never became a big music or football superstar. The version of me that never got my dream girl to say yes. Like the version of me that never went to the higher institution early. Like the version of me that was supposed to start by 20 and not 30. The version of me that was supposed to be brave enough, bulky enough, rich enough, ready enough. I buried them without a funeral. And now I am grieving in silence because how do I explain to people that I'm mourning a life that never existed? This is the grief of the things that we never became. And it's real. It's heavy. Grief is not just about what is gone, but also for what never got to be. Honestly, when I look at life, I get the nudge of this grief. It shows up whenever there is love for something lost. And I love the future version of me. I picture them. I build plans around them. I carry them in my chest for years. Honestly, this grief gets stronger when we see our peers, our friends, and people around us manifest the things that we hope for our future self. Like seeing your friends getting married, seeing your friends getting that dream car, seeing your friend hitting high in their career and becoming multimillionaires, seeing your friends bagging degrees, getting awards and adding more certificates to their files. Honestly, seeing people manifest the things we hope for our future self can be really grievous. Honestly, it's funny how people die and people send flowers to their graves. People sit down with their loved ones to console them. People bring food to eat and to sing songs of worship for them. But when this future you died, no one sends flowers. No one knows about it. No one knows the silent mournings in your heart. Most times when I look through the lenses of time, I feel discouragement. I feel fear. I feel disappointment. But most times I feel fear that I might not be able to achieve this future version of myself. The Bible said in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 2 from verse 9, it says, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, it has not come to the understanding of man what the Lord has prepared for they that love him. And in the book of Romans chapter 8 from verse 28, it says, all things work together for the good of they that love God and walk according to his purpose. These scriptures validates the fact that God has plans for us. And he has good plans for us as his children because he's a loving God and he's a good father. This doesn't take away the fact that most times our human nature will always feel discomfort when the grief comes from the things that we never became. Because most times God's will for us is not always in alignment with our fleshly desires and our perspective on the things, how to attain the things that we want for ourselves. Sometimes it becomes very difficult for us to allow God's plans for our destinies and purpose fulfillment to overwhelm our plan for ourselves. Personally, I struggle to give up my music dreams and my football dreams to allow the will of God prevail in my life. Because most times when God shows us His will for us, it takes us through unfamiliar paths like the wilderness before we get to our Canaan land. And it becomes very difficult for us to understand because these are unfamiliar paths. They are paths that we are not familiar with. But the best decision I've ever made is trusting God's will for my life. Because He said in Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11, He says, I know the thoughts that I have for you, thoughts of good and not of evil, to bring you to an expected end. And so far, God has been faithful, and I have come to realize that His plans for me are the best for my life, regardless of the grief I'm feeling for the things I never became. While grieving what we never became is real, we must always remember the fact that we cannot pitch our tents in this grief, because these kinds of grief blinds us from seeing what God is doing in our lives. Most times when we grieve because we've taken our eyes from the path through which God is leading us. But the book of Philippians chapter 4 verse 6 and 7 says, be careful for nothing, but with everything, with prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be known unto God. And 7 says that, and the peace of God that passeth all understanding shall guide your heart. God most times takes us through unfamiliar paths. And sometimes when we don't understand these unfamiliar paths, we begin to look at life in a different way. And most times God takes us through paths we don't understand. But we must trust Him that He has beautiful plans for us. This trust and faith in Him helps us in stormy days, because in stormy days sometimes we'll begin to doubt if He is truly with us. And in the stormy days are the days when God wants us to trust Him more. What I have learned from my experience with my work with God is that we must learn to always trust Him, especially in stormy days. He said in the book of John chapter 14 from verse 1, He says, if you believe in me, let not your hearts be troubled. No matter what is happening around you, trust my plans for you. Trust my will for you. Trust that I'm leading you to the beautiful parts of your life. So while we grieve for what we never became, we must trust that God has better plans for us beyond the things that we've planned for ourselves and beyond the things that we've pictured ourselves in. God has far better, far higher, far clearer and more beautiful plans for us than we've ever had for ourselves. So we must trust His loving leading. The book of Psalms says that the Lord has come to order our steps. He shall order our steps. We must trust Him. We must trust His leading, because He's going to take us to the beautiful paths and the beautiful place of life. Trust God. God is still writing our story. God is not finished with us. He says He gives beauty for ashes.